The night was silent on the alien world. The sky glowed with two pale moons casting silver light across the forests and valleys. The air was cool and the leaves rustled softly in the wind. Most of the village slept peacefully, unaware of the terror about to come. But one alien mother could not sleep. She woke suddenly, her heart beating fast as if the night itself had whispered her name. She looked around her home and felt her chest grow tight. Her sons were gone. Her two boys had been lying beside her only hours ago. She remembered tucking them in, stroking their soft skin and telling them stories of the stars. They had laughed and asked questions about faraway worlds. She had promised they were safe. Now their sleeping mats were empty. The warmth of their bodies had faded. There were no sounds, no footsteps, no sign of struggle. They had simply vanished into the night. She rushed outside, calling their names in her trembling voice. Her cry echoed across the still village, but no answer came. Her neighbors stirred from their homes, eyes filled with confusion and fear. They held torches that burned in the dark, and their shadows stretched long across the ground. Some whispered among themselves. Others began to search nearby paths, but their faces carried doubt. The villagers had seen this before. Children had gone missing before, and they had never returned. The mother's hands shook as she searched the ground. The soil was untouched, smooth, as though the night had swallowed her sons whole. There were no marks, no broken branches, no claw prints, nothing to explain their disappearance. It was unnatural. It was wrong. The fear in the villagers' eyes turned toward suspicion. Someone muttered the words that made her blood turn cold. The humans did this. The name spread through the crowd like fire. Humans were a story told to frighten young ones, a warning passed down by elders, strange beings from the stars, violent and clever, who once came to their world and left destruction behind. Most believed they were gone. Some said they still lived in secret, hiding in shadows, watching. And now, with two boys missing, whispers turned into certainty. It must be the human. Who else would take them? But the mother's heart refused to believe so quickly. She knew her people feared humans more than they understood them. She had never seen one herself, but the stories described them as cruel, heartless creatures. If her sons had been taken by such a monster, then their fate was sealed. Yet deep inside her chest she felt something else. Not despair, but a strange pull, as if the truth was waiting beyond the edge of the village. She pressed forward, ignoring the fearful warnings of the others. Torchlight flickered behind her as she left the safety of her people and stepped into the dark forest. The air grew colder. The shadows grew deeper. Every sound, the crack of a branch, the distant call of an animal, made her heart pound harder. She called her sons' names again, her voice breaking, but only silence answered. As she walked deeper, she felt the forest watching her. It was as though unseen eyes followed her every step. The silence was heavy, almost unnatural, pressing against her skin like a weight. She stopped suddenly. There in the dirt she saw something faint. Not footprints of her sons, not the familiar three-toed tracks of her kind, but something else. Long, narrow prints. Almost human, her chest tightened. The villagers' whispers returned to her mind. Humans, could it be true? Were the stories real? And if so, why would they take her children? The mother's heart burned with fear, but also with fire. If her sons had been stolen by a human, she would not rest until she found them. She would search the forbidden ruins, she would cross the wild forests, she would step into the shadows where no alien dared to go. She would fight whatever danger stood before her, even if it meant facing the monster from the stars. The moons shifted above her, one sinking behind the mountains, the other glowing brighter in the sky. The forest seemed to close around her, dark and endless, yet she pressed forward, her eyes sharp, her breath steady. Her love was stronger than her fear. And somewhere, hidden beyond the trees, someone else watched her. A figure standing silent in the ruins of stone, a figure not of her kind. His eyes followed her every movement, and his heart carried a secret only he knew. The alien mother searched for her missing sons, not knowing the truth, that they had not been taken by an enemy, but sheltered by the one being she feared most. The night held its breath. The mystery had only begun. Far away from the alien village, hidden deep inside the broken skeleton of an ancient outpost, a human lived in silence. The outpost was old, built long before the aliens had learned of his kind. Its walls were cracked, its metal beams covered in vines, its once bright lights long dead. Now it was nothing more than ruins, a place where no alien dared to go. But for the human, it was a secret shelter, a place to hide from eyes that would never forgive his presence. His name was whispered in no village, for most aliens believed humans were myths or monsters. He did not argue with their fear. It kept them away. He lived alone, hunting quietly, moving only at night and covering every trace of his existence. For years he had stayed in the shadows, careful not to be seen. But now his secret was heavier than ever before. For he was no longer alone. Inside the ruin, two small alien boys sat by a low fire. Their wide eyes glowed in the dim light, reflecting both fear and trust. They were the missing sons, hidden not by chains but by choice. Their thin frames trembled at times, but their faces relaxed when the human passed them food. He placed a plate of strange cooked roots in front of them, and the boys ate with hunger, though their alien tongues found the taste odd. "Eat," the human said softly. His voice was rough, his words slow, but the boys understood. He had learned enough of their language to speak simply. They nodded and obeyed. The boys trusted him, though they did not fully understand why. He had saved them. The memory was fresh, still sharp as the cut of a blade. They had wandered too close to the forest edge days ago, chasing a glowing insect between the trees. That was when the predator came, dark, fast, with eyes that gleamed like fire. They screamed, frozen in terror, until the human appeared from the shadows. He had fought the beast with nothing but a sharpened spear and strange courage. His arms were strong, his movements fast, unlike anything the boys had ever seen. He struck again and again until the creature fled, leaving silence behind. The boys had expected him to kill them next. That was what the story said humans did. But instead he lifted them gently, checked their wounds, and brought them here. Now they sat in the ruins, safe, but afraid of discovery. The human leaned back against a broken wall, watching them closely. His eyes carried a weight, an old sadness. He knew what the aliens thought of his kind. He knew if their mother or their people found them here, he would be seen not as a savior but as a thief. Still, he could not let them go, not yet. The danger outside was too real. The boys whispered to each other in their alien tongue, their voices low. One of them, the older, asked, "Why do you hide us? Why not take us home?" The human looked into the fire. The flames danced against his worn face, showing lines of both strength and sorrow. "Home is not safe," he answered simply. The boys frowned, confused. They missed their mother, their village, their warm beds. Yet they remembered the predator's glowing eyes and the human's steady hands. Somewhere deep inside they understood he was not lying. Night thickened outside. The wind howled through broken metal beams. Shadows shifted against the ruined walls, and the human's hand stayed near his spear. He knew the predator might return. He knew the forest was not the only danger. If the villagers found him here, they would never believe his story. They would see only the monster from the stars. Still, he could not turn away from the boys. Something in them reminded him of his own past, of a family he had lost long ago on another world far from here. Their laughter, their innocent questions, their trembling hands. These things stirred a part of him he thought was dead. The younger boy yawned and leaned against his brother. Slowly, both drifted to sleep beside the fire, their faces calm at last. The human pulled a torn blanket over them, careful not to wake them. For a moment, the ruin felt warm, almost like a home. But outside, the night held secrets. The mother searched. The villagers whispered. And something darker moved between the trees. The human stood at the doorway of the ruin, staring into the black forest. His eyes narrowed. He could feel it watching. The same predator that had attacked before. It would come again. And when it did, the boys would not survive without him. He tightened his grip on the spear. His heart beat steady, not for himself, but for the two small lives sleeping behind him. He had become their protector, whether the world accepted it or not. And so the human remained in the ruins, a secret refuge, hidden from the mother who searched, hidden from the people who feared him, and hidden from the truth that would soon explode when all paths crossed. The night was not quiet anymore. It was the beginning of something larger, something dangerous, something that would bind alien and human fate together forever. The fire burned low in the ruins, its orange light flickering against the cold metal walls. The two alien boys slept soundly, curled together under a worn blanket, their small breath steady. But the human did not sleep. His eyes stayed open, staring into the flames while his hand rested on the sharp spear beside him. The night outside was too quiet, too heavy, and he knew silence in this world never meant safety. He leaned his head back against the wall, closing his eyes for only a moment. Memories returned as they always did when the darkness pressed too close. He remembered another night years ago when he had not been the hunter but the helpless one. He had been younger then, with family and comrades, when their ship had fallen from the sky. The crash had killed many. The survivors had been hunted by the same creatures that roamed these forests now. And one by one he had lost them all. The aliens never came to help. They feared him, hated him, or perhaps simply did not care. Only he remained. Since then he had learned to live in shadows, to hide, to survive. But now the boys had changed everything. He looked at them again, their faces soft, innocent, untouched by the war of fear between species. They were different from their people. They had not called him a monster. They had not run. They had stayed. He thought of the predator he had fought, the shadow with burning eyes. It would return because it always returned. It hunted not for hunger but for something darker. He knew its pattern. He had seen its kills. Always the young, always the vulnerable. The human's jaw tightened. He had never told anyone the truth because there was no one to tell. The aliens believed their children simply vanished. They whispered of ghosts, curses, or humans stealing them away. They never searched deep enough to see what was truly in the dark. Perhaps they were too afraid. Perhaps they wanted an easier answer. But the human knew the truth. The predator was real and it was clever. A faint sound outside pulled him from his thoughts. A branch snapped. He rose silently, gripping the spear, and moved to the broken doorway. The forest stretched before him, black and endless. He scanned the trees, his breath slow, his senses sharp. Nothing moved. Nothing showed itself. Yet he felt it. Watching. Waiting. He stayed at the door until the fire died low and the first pale light of dawn touched the horizon. Only then did he relax his grip. He turned back to the boys, who stirred awake, rubbing their eyes. The younger one blinked at him and asked in a sleepy voice, "Will we go home today?" The human did not answer at once. He saw the hope in their faces, the longing for their mother. But he also saw the danger outside, the silent shadow that had not given up. He sighed, lowering the spear. "Not yet," he said finally. The older boy frowned. "Mother will be searching. She will think you stole us." The word struck hard, though the human did not show it. He knew the boy was right. The mother would never believe her children had chosen to stay. The villagers would never believe his warnings. To them, humans were only thieves and killers. But still, he could not release them. Not yet. Later that day, as the sun climbed, he took them outside. They walked carefully through the ruins, their small feet stepping over broken stone and tangled vines. The boys asked questions, their voices curious, their fear fading as they explored the strange human place. One pointed at a rusted sign covered in alien moss. "What is this?" The human touched the metal gently. His voice was quiet. "Old words. My people built this long ago." The boys looked at him with wide eyes. For the first time they saw not a monster but a piece of history, a being with a story older than their fear. When they returned inside, the human finally spoke of the predator. He told them of its glowing eyes, its silent steps, its hunger for children. He told them how he had seen villages lose their young and how no one dared face it. The boys shivered, but they listened. "Why us?" the older one asked, his voice trembling. "Because you are small. Because you are easy to take," the human said honestly. His eyes burned with fire. "But not while I live." The boys were silent, but in their hearts, they felt something new. Safety. Strength. Not from their people. Not from their walls, but from the human who had chosen to protect them. That night, as the moons rose again, the boys slept closer to him, and though the human sat awake once more, his spear in hand, his heart carried something it had not felt in years. A purpose. But far away in the forest, the mother was still searching. Her steps grew closer with every hour, her fear twisting into anger. She believed she hunted a human thief. She did not yet know the truth, that her children were safe not in her arms but in the arms of the one she feared most. The path of discovery was coming. Soon secrets would no longer stay hidden. The alien mother did not stop searching. Every step she took pushed her farther from the safety of her village and deeper into the unknown forest. Her feet ached, her throat was dry, but her heart would not let her rest. Her sons were out there somewhere, and every hour without them was torture. She ignored the whispers of her people telling her the boys were gone forever. She ignored their warnings that no mother should walk into the forbidden woods. She carried only her courage, her grief, and a sharp blade tied to her waist. The forest was not silent anymore. Strange cries echoed from the shadows. The air was thick with mist and branches bent like claws above her. The ground was damp and strange tracks crossed her path, long prints that did not belong to any animal she knew. She crouched low, her fingers brushing the dirt. The marks were faint, half hidden under leaves, but they told her enough. Something or someone had passed this way. Her heart pounded faster. She remembered the villagers' whispers, the way their eyes filled with fear when they spoke of humans. She had never seen one, but the stories painted them as clever demons, monsters from the stars, thieves of children. If those stories were true, then perhaps her sons had been taken. The thought burned inside her chest like fire. She pressed forward, her steps sharp, her eyes searching every shadow. The trees grew denser, their branches twisting together until the sky vanished. The deeper she walked, the more she felt the forest was alive, watching her. She tried to push the fear aside, but it clawed at her mind. Every crack of a branch made her grip her blade tighter. Then she found something that made her breath stop. A scrap of cloth, small, torn, caught on a thorn bush. She rushed to it, her hands trembling as she pulled it free. It was her son's. She remembered sewing that piece into his clothes herself. The cloth smelled faintly of him. Tears filled her eyes, but with them came fierce determination. They were alive. They had to be. The trail grew clearer now. Broken twigs, small footprints mixed with something else. Larger, heavier prints that matched no creature she knew. The same narrow shape again and again. Human prints. Her chest tightened, torn between fear and rage. If it was truly a human, then the stories were true. And if her sons were in its hands, she would tear them free no matter the cost. She whispered their names into the wind as if they might hear her, as if her voice could guide them back. The forest grew darker as night returned. 2 moons rose above, casting pale light through cracks in the leaves. The mother lit a small torch, holding it high, her shadow stretching long behind her. Her mind raced with images, her sons calling for her, trapped, crying in the dark. Each thought made her legs move faster, her blade ready. Finally, she reached the edge of a clearing. In the distance, half hidden by vines and broken stone, stood ruins she had never seen before. Strange towers of metal leaned against the sky, their surfaces rusted and torn. The place carried the scent of age, of something old and forgotten. Her people never came here. The elders had warned that this land was cursed, touched by humans long ago. And yet faint smoke curled from the ruins, rising into the night sky. A fire. Someone was there, her heart raced. She lowered her torch and crept closer, her steps silent, her body pressed low. She moved like a shadow, her eyes sharp. She reached a broken wall and peered inside. Her breath caught. There, by a dying fire, she saw them. Her sons. They sat close together, their small bodies wrapped in a rough blanket, their faces calm, even smiling as they whispered to one another. Relief slammed through her chest so hard she almost cried aloud. They were alive. They were safe. But then she saw him. The figure sat near them, tall and broad, his face half lit by firelight. His skin was strange, his hair dark, his eyes sharp. He held no chains, no weapons drawn, yet the sight of him filled her with dread. Human. The very monster her people feared. Rage replaced her relief. She gripped her blade, ready to strike. Her body trembled with fury and terror. She would kill him, take her sons, and run before he could harm them. But before she could move, something happened that froze her in place. Her sons turned toward him, their eyes filled not with fear, but with trust. The older one leaned against the human side, tired but safe. The younger laughed softly at something he said. They looked at him the way children look at someone they believe in. The mother's world shook. Why would they trust him? Why would they smile at the monster? Her grip on the blade weakened, though her heart thundered in her chest. She could not understand it. She could not accept it, but the truth was there before her eyes. Her sons were alive, and the human was not their captor. He was their refuge. The night grew colder, the fire cracked, and the mother remained hidden in the shadows, torn between love, fear, and the storm of questions that burned in her mind. The mother could not hold back any longer. Her sons were there, alive but sitting beside a human. Her heart pounded like thunder. Rage and love collided inside her chest. She gripped her blade and stormed from the shadows, her voice cutting through the night. "Stay away from them," she shouted. Her sons jerked awake, their eyes wide with shock. The human moved instantly, his hand reaching for the spear resting near the fire. He rose to his feet, calm but ready, his sharp eyes fixed on her. The firelight painted his face in gold and shadow, and for the first time the mother saw him fully. He was no story, no rumor, he was real. Flesh, blood, dangerous. She rushed forward, blade raised high, but then something stopped her. "Mother," her older son cried, throwing himself in front of the human. His small arms spread wide as if his tiny frame could shield the tall figure behind him. The younger boy followed, his face pale with fear. "Do not hurt him," the younger shouted, his voice shaking. The mother froze, stunned. Her son stood between her and the monster. Her hand trembled, the blade still raised. "What are you doing?" "Move," she demanded. "He is human. He stole you. No." The older son's voice cracked with desperation. "He saved us." The words struck her like a blow. Saved them? Impossible. Humans destroyed, they killed, they took. That was the story. Yet her son's eyes were filled with certainty, with truth. The human did not speak at first. He stood behind the boys, watching the mother with steady eyes. His spear remained at his side, not raised, not threatening. He looked more like a wall than a weapon. Calm, unflinching, but ready if she attacked. The mother's chest heaved. Her mind spun. "You expect me to believe this?" She spat, her voice breaking between fury and fear. "You one of them protect my children? Why, for what purpose? To trick them? To trick me?" Finally the human spoke, his voice deep but steady. "I did not steal them. They came with me. I fought for them when the creature attacked. I kept them safe when the forest would have taken them." The mother shook her head violently, her grip on the blade tightening. "Lies, my people vanish because of your kind. My sons vanish and I find them here in your hands. And you dare call yourself a savior?" The boys cried out again, their voices desperate. "It's true, Mother. The beast came for us. It almost took us away. He fought it. We saw it with our own eyes." The memory of the torn cloth returned to her mind. The strange track she had followed. The silence of the forest. Her people always believed humans were the cause, but what if? What if something else was hunting? Her heart wanted to believe her children, but her fear of the human pressed harder. She stepped closer, her blade trembling. "Why would you help them?" she asked coldly, her eyes burning into him. "What do you gain?" The human's expression did not change. "I lost my own family long ago. I know what it means to be left with nothing. I will not let that happen again. Not to them." For a moment, silence fell heavy between them. The fire crackled softly. The night wind brushed against the broken walls, and the boys looked between their mother and their protector with pleading eyes. The mother's arm lowered slightly, though the blade still hung in her hand. She saw no fear in her children's faces when they looked at him. Only trust. That trust cut deeper than any weapon. But before she could answer, a sound split the air. A low growl rolled through the forest, deep and menacing. The fire shivered as if the night itself had drawn breath. The human's eyes narrowed instantly, his grip tightening on his spear. The boys went silent, clinging to each other. The mother turned toward the trees, her heart pounding. And there, just beyond the edge of the ruin, two glowing eyes appeared, burning, watching. The predator. Her sons gasped, their small bodies trembling. The human stepped forward, spear in hand, placing himself between them and the darkness. The mother felt her blood run cold. The monster was real. It was not just a story to frighten children. It was here. The human's voice was low but firm. "Now you see. I am not your enemy." "That is?" The mother's blade shook in her grip as the truth hit her like a storm. All the missing children. All the whispers. All the fear. It was never the humans. It was this thing. The predator growled again, its shadow sliding closer, the ground vibrating under its weight. The mother stepped beside the human, her blade raised once more. Her eyes burned with fury. "Then we fight together," she said, her voice sharp with fire. The human gave a single nod. For the first time, they were not enemies. For the first time, their weapons pointed at the same shadow. And in that tense moment, as the predator moved from the trees, the line between fear and truth shattered forever. The forest trembled as the predator stepped from the shadows. Its body was massive, covered in scales that shimmered like black stone. Its long limbs bent unnaturally, and its claws sank deep into the soil with every step. Its head was low, its jaw wide, filled with sharp teeth that glistened in the pale moonlight. But worst of all were its eyes, two burning orbs of orange fire fixed on the children. The boys cried out, clutching each other in terror. The mother pulled them behind her, her blade shaking in her hand. Beside her, the human stood tall, his spear pointed forward, his face grim but steady. The predator growled, a sound so deep it rattled the broken walls of the ruins. Then in a blur it leapt. The mother swung her blade, striking its side, but the weapon barely cut through its thick skin. The beast snarled, whipping its tail with such force that the ground cracked. She stumbled back, nearly falling. The human lunged forward, driving his spear toward its chest. The predator twisted, and the spear only grazed its shoulder. Still, the strike made it recoil for a moment, giving them a breath of time. "Keep them behind you," the human barked, his voice sharp with urgency. The mother obeyed, pushing her sons back against the wall, shielding them with her body. Her heart pounded with terror. The stories had never described such a creature. Now she understood. This was the real thief of children, the shadow in the night. The predator circled, low and silent, its eyes glowing with hunger. It moved like liquid darkness, each step smooth, deadly. Then it attacked again, claws flashing. The human blocked with his spear, sparks flying as metal struck scale. The force drove him back, his arms straining. The mother rushed in, slashing her blade across the beast's leg. It screeched, jerking toward her, and its claws tore into the ground where she had stood only moments before. She rolled aside, dirt spraying her face. The boys screamed her name, but she forced herself up, blade ready. Fear burned her veins, but she refused to run. Her children were watching. If she fell, they would fall too. The predator lunged at the human again, jaws wide. He ducked low, thrusting his spear into its open mouth. The weapon wedged between its teeth, stopping the bite. But the beast shook its head violently, lifting the human off the ground. He held on with all his strength as the predator thrashed, slamming him against a broken pillar. The mother screamed and rushed forward, driving her blade into its flank. The cut was shallow, but blood sprayed dark across the stones. The predator shrieked, dropping the human. He hit the ground hard, gasping for breath, his body bruised. But he rose again, spear in hand, eyes blazing with determination. The predator turned its burning eyes toward the children. With terrifying speed, it leapt past the mother, claws outstretched. The boy shrieked, pressing back against the wall. But the human was faster. He dove between the beast and the children, slamming the spear upward with all his strength. The weapon pierced under its jaw, cutting deep. The predator howled, thrashing wildly. "Now!" the human shouted. The mother charged, her blade flashing in the firelight. With a scream of fury, she slashed across its throat where the spear had cut. This time the wound was deep. Blood poured out hot and dark, staining the ground. The predator staggered, claws clawing wildly at the air. It let out one final ear-splitting shriek before collapsing onto the ruins with a thunderous crash. Its burning eyes dimmed, fading into lifeless black. Silence fell. The mother stood frozen, her chest heaving, her hands shaking around the bloody blade. The human leaned against his spear, sweat dripping down his face, his breaths ragged. The boys ran to their mother, clinging to her legs, their tears wetting her skin. She dropped the blade and pulled them close, her arms wrapping around them like armor. Relief poured through her, hot and overwhelming. They were alive. But then her eyes turned to the human. He stood there, still between them and the fallen beast, as though ready for more. His clothes were torn, his arms bruised, but he had not faltered. She met his eyes, and for the first time she did not see a monster. She saw a protector, a fighter who had stood beside her against death itself. The fire cracked softly, filling the silence. The children looked at the human with wide, grateful eyes, whispering, "He saved us again." The mother's heart twisted. Everything she had believed about humans, every story she had been told, felt like sand slipping through her fingers. She had wanted to kill him, but without him they would all be dead. Her voice was quiet, almost broken. Why do you fight for us?" The human's answer was simple, his tone steady. "Because someone must. The night was not safe yet." She could feel it in her bones. That predator was not the only one. Others would come, and when they did, her sons would not survive unless she trusted the very being she had feared. For the first time she lowered her eyes and nodded slightly, her voice trembling. "Then, we fight together." The human said nothing, only lifted his spear once more and stared into the dark forest. The real enemy had shown itself. But the greater war was only beginning. The ruins were quiet again, but the silence was heavy. The predator's body lay twisted on the ground, its dark blood soaking the earth. The children clung to their mother's arms, trembling but alive. The human stood nearby, leaning on his spear, his body marked with bruises and cuts. His breath came slow, steady, as though he had fought battles like this many times before. The mother's heart was still racing. Her arms held her sons tightly, as if she feared they might vanish again if she let go, but her eyes stayed fixed on the human. The firelight touched his face, showing his tired but determined expression. She wanted to hate him. She wanted to call him a thief, a monster, but her son's safety, the blood on his hands and the dead beast between them told another story. The younger boy broke the silence first. His voice was small, shaky. "Mother, he saved us twice." The older one nodded quickly, adding, "Without him, we would be gone. The beast wanted us, not him. Not you, us." The words cut deep. She looked down at them, her children who had always trusted her, now looking at the human with the same trust. It was painful, but it was also truth. She had seen it with her own eyes. The predator was the real enemy, not the human. Still, her mind twisted with questions. Why had her people lost so many children over the years? Why had no one discovered the truth? Why did they blame the humans? And most of all, how long had he been protecting them in silence? The human broke her thoughts with his voice. This was only one. He pointed his spear toward the forest, where shadows stretched deep into the night. "There are more. They hunt in packs sometimes. They will come again." Her chest tightened. She thought of all the children who had disappeared, the nights when parents had wept and villagers had whispered. She had blamed humans just like the rest. But all this time, the real monsters had been moving in the dark. The human looked at her steadily, his eyes sharp but not cruel. "If you take them back now, the beast's scent will follow. They will come for your village, for your sons." For others, the mother's blood ran cold. She wanted nothing more than to carry her sons home, to return them to safety. But what safety remained if the predators could strike at will? Her people had no idea what stalked them. They had lived in fear of the wrong enemy. The boys pressed against her, clinging to her arms. "We want to go home," the younger whispered, her throat tightened. She wanted to promise them everything would be fine. But she could not lie. She looked into their eyes, then into the human's. His face carried no lies, only the weight of survival. He had lived here alone, in the shadows, fighting what others refused to see. She finally spoke, her voice low but firm. "Then what must we do?" The human did not hesitate. "Stay here for now. The ruins are hidden. The predators avoid fire and walls of stone. It is not safe forever, but safer than the village." Her sons looked at her with wide, uncertain eyes. Her heart ached. To trust a human was against everything she had ever been taught. But the choice before her was cruel. Stay with the one she feared or lose her sons to the darkness. She closed her eyes, holding her children tighter. The decision felt like swallowing fire. When she opened them again, she gave a single nod. "Then we stay." The human only turned back to the fire, tossing wood onto the dying flames. Sparks rose, glowing in the night. "The beast will return," he said. "We must be ready." The mother sat beside her sons, her blade resting in her lap. She glanced at the human, then at the predator's corpse outside the ruin. For the first time, she saw the truth with her own eyes. Her people had feared the wrong enemy. They had hated the one who had silently been their shield. The boys leaned against her, their small bodies warm and tired. She kissed their foreheads, her heart both relieved and heavy. She whispered softly, as much to herself as to them, "To save you, I must trust the being I feared most." The firelight flickered across the broken walls, casting long shadows that danced like spirits. Outside, the forest was restless. Somewhere in the darkness, another growl echoed, faint but real. The mother's grip tightened on her blade. The human lifted his spear once more. Their eyes met, not friends, not allies, but bound by survival. The night was not over, and the danger was only beginning.